Today we play golf.
Let me show you how we do it in the pros.
Welcome to Behind the Golf Brand Podcast.
I never miss with the 7-iron.
A conversation with some of the most interesting innovators and entrepreneurs behind the biggest names in golf.
My friends were the golf clubs. I lived on the golf course. I lived on the driving range.
From pro talk.
You should learn something from each and every single round you play in.
To fun from on and off the green.
Why would you play golf if you don't play it for money?
Just let me put the ball in the hole.
This is Behind the Golf Brand Podcast with Paul Liberatore. Behind the Golf Brand Podcast is sponsored by On Point, the revolutionary three-dimensional domed golf ball marker. On Point provides alignment recognition as small as a degree of inaccuracy from the planned course of the putt face angle. Endorsed by Jim Furyk, U.S. Open champion and 17-time PGA Tour winner. On Point alignment technology has been proven to increase putting performance and help lower your score. Visit onpointgolf.us and be sure to use code GA10 for a 10% discount. On Point, make more putts.
What's up, guys? Paul from Golfers Authority. Welcome to Behind the Golf Brand Podcast. This week, I have my friend Tim from Athalonz. Athalonz is one of the premier golf shoes that's just started in the last couple of years. It's just like blowing up. A lot of long ball hitters use it now. The technology and science behind the shoe is really interesting. And, if long ball hitters are using it, there's a reason. So without further ado, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Paul. Good to be here.
So where are you at right now? I always ask people that.
I'm in Mesa, Arizona. I'm at my home office. And then we also have an Athalonz office, which is just a few miles from my home. So it works out nicely for me.
That's cool. It's by the airport. I know that, right? Falcon Field.
Yes. Yeah, we're at Greenfield and McDowell. And for those of you that know the Mesa area.
I used to work at Falcon Field. I actually got my private pilot's license at Falcon Field. That's why.
Ah, cool.
And I worked at Boeing, over there too. I forgot to tell you that.
Yeah, that's a huge facility. And, for the last year, their parking lot is a fraction of what it was prior to COVID. It's pretty interesting to see.
It's a cool place because that's where they make the Apache longbow. So when I was there, it was really freaking cool. And then when I was an intern, and when I was interning, one of the guys I worked with knew somebody on the flight line because they're in the Army together. And he's like, "Yeah, I can get you in." So I had to go to work at 5:00 in the morning to go to the flight line, which I wasn't even supposed to be at. I'm probably going to jail for this story. But they let me sit in the cockpit. It was freaking cool. It was
cool.
It was really cool. The gunner seat. This is like 1997.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was so cool. I have a lot of good friends who still work at Boeing, so it's a good company over there. So what is your first memory with golf? Like, how long have you been playing golf?
Well, I didn't start playing golf until I was an adult. I grew up in a family that was lower middle income at best. So we didn't have access to golf courses, and I was left-handed, and my dad had one old set of right-handed clubs. So I didn't play golf until I was probably in my mid-30s. And then it's kind of off and on since then. I love to play. It's just finding the time and the time to play and practice. So you're like most people. This is really funny. I found this like a common thread is that most of the guys that are starting brands are not pros, right? They're more just like guys that like the game of golf or start figuring out the technology or whatever it is. Would that be true? It sounds like with you too, right? Yeah. Well, I was a baseball player. That was actually what I wanted to be when I grew up. So I had dreams of being a Major League Baseball player, and actually went to college to play baseball, but I kept getting hurt. So my baseball career ended when I was 19, but finished on with school and got an electrical engineering degree. And then a few years later, let me just kind of give you the whole story there. So my senior year of engineering school, my wife and I, we had our first daughter, and this was 1984, February, and she had a congenital heart defect. So she needed open heart surgery to fix that. And what we didn't know at the time is the technique that our daughter needed, they had just perfected like a year earlier. So the condition my daughter had prior to this new technique, over 50% of the babies that had it would die. And then with the new surgery, it was 90% success rate. the issue is they didn't have the equipment was too large to operate on an infant. So we had to wait until she got bigger. And so she had the surgery in October. And just to jump ahead, she's now 30, just turned 37. My goodness.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it's hard to believe. But so she had to wait that 8 months before she could have her surgery. And so the doctors were controlling her medical condition through medications. So every once in a while, we'd have to take her to the hospital to get the medications adjusted as she grew. So from the time she was born until she had her surgery, we were in and out of the hospital 6 times. And, like I said, this was my senior year of engineering school. I was 22 at the time and my wife was 21. So we were dead broke. So a couple of years after her surgery, we got sued by the hospital. We had, every once in a while we'd send in a check, but we had 6 accounts that I didn't know about. So the oldest account was when she was first born. So we got sued. So this was 1987. And so before the internet existed. So I started calling around for attorneys to represent us, and they all wanted at least a $5,000 retainer just to get started. And I'm like, well, I don't have that kind of money. I says, I don't dispute that I owe it. I just don't have the means to pay it. So a friend of mine said that you can represent yourself. And, my first thought was, well, no, you got to be smart to be a lawyer.
That's not true.
No. But that was my thought at the time. But I had no choice. So I was living in the Chicago suburbs at the time. So for a month, I drove down to downtown Chicago, went to the law library and studied how to represent myself and filed the answer. And at the first hearing, the judge calls us into his chambers, me and the attorney for the hospital. And, now with 30 plus years of being an attorney, I can look back on that. And the attorney for the hospital just did an awful job. He was trying to paint me out to be a deadbeat. It's like, I wasn't a deadbeat. I was just a young engineer with a critically filled.
And I pissed off the judge.
Yeah. So
that's when you're screwed. That's when you're screwed.
Yeah. So the judge asked me, how the family's doing. And, and he asked me, what can you afford? And I had my spreadsheet, engineer, I had my spreadsheet. He goes, I can afford $20 a month. And the judge goes, all right, this is what we're going to do. I owed over $40,000. He goes, you're going to pay them hospital $20 a month for the next 3 years, and we're all set. And the attorney for the hospital goes, that's completely unacceptable. The judge claps his hands and goes, good, we got a deal. So as I was driving home from the courthouse, it's like, I think I'm going to law school. So that's how.
Really? That was your first, to go to law school? That was what prompted you?
Yeah. So that's what gave me the inspiration to go to law school, and started about a year later. And then right after I started law school, I was fortunate enough to get a job at Motorola working in their patent department. And that's how I got into patent law.
That's a crazy story.
Thanks. How this ties into Athalonz is, like I said, I grew up wanting to be a baseball player and still had a passion for baseball. And then after law school, I started playing adult baseball. And it was real baseball, men's senior league. And, it was a lot of good players. So it was a lot of fun. And then for my 50th birthday, which is now coming up on 10 years ago, my wife got me, enrolled me at what's called Pro Bowl Camp. And it's a camp for adult players that want to learn how to play baseball better. And it's taught by major league coaches.
Oh.
And one of the drills was taught by Rick Adair. He was the pitching coach for the Orioles. Was they put a rosin bag on the outside of the foot and underneath the heel of the drive leg to force that back knee inward a little bit. So if you drew a line from the groin to the ankle, that knee should be on the inside of that line. And why he came up with that idea was studying Hall of Fame caliber pitchers and talking to them and looking at their lower half. They all had incredibly powerful, balanced lower half. And they all had the knee on the inside of that line from the groin to the ankle. And then Rick also noticed, though, that most major league pitchers and hitters, for that matter, they didn't. So even those elite athletes, they weren't in the most optimal position for generating power and stability. So that's why he came up with the drill. So when we met at this camp, he goes, do you think we could put that into a shoe? And, with my engineering background, and I've done a fair bit of inventing through my career. I says, yeah, we can figure that out. So that's how Athalonz got started almost 11 years ago now. And then and we started with a baseball shoe that came out in 2014, and we had modest success there. And then we also had a baseball turf shoe that we had. So this all transitions now how we get into golf. We were at a charity event. There were four of us at a golf charity event in the spring of 2018. And golf shoes were on our radar screen at the time. But for this charity event, you could spend $25 and have a long distance driver hit one of your tee shots. So we spent our $25, and it was the long driver was Mitch McDowell. He was a teaching pro at Mesa Country Club. Plus, he'd also been competing in long drive for 15 years. So we were chatting with him on the tee box. And he says, hey, would you mind trying on our turf shoes? We've got this technology that helps put you in a better athletic position. And he goes, sure, I don't mind. And he took one swing at me. He goes, oh my God, my back legs locked in. I felt this, I felt that, and I just hit the ball 35 yards further.
Holy crap.
So that was like escalated our desire to make a golf shoe. So
because you weren't expecting that, right? Because you're just like, well, we know it probably will work, but when you see a long ball hitter hit the ball, 35 yards a lot, especially to them, right? Because they're all close to each other, so it's like it's that little extra they need to win.
That was huge. Yeah. So within a few months we had a prototype golf shoe made, and then Mitch McDowell took that to an event. So this would have been the summer of 2018. He took that to a long drive event. And he got knocked out in the round of 32. But Ryan Steenberg, who's good friends with Mitch, says, hey, let me try those shoes. Ryan was number 6 in the world at the time and had been competing for 8 years, but he had never won an event. He puts on our shoes, he wins that event. The next event out in our shoes, he wins that again. And people are like, Ryan, what did you do differently? And he goes, literally, I changed my shoes. And of course, the first reaction is, well, that doesn't make any sense. But then the next player tried it and they got better. And the next player. So by mid-season of 2019, we had over 50% of long drivers wearing our shoes, including 8 of the top 10 men and women, and both men and women's 2019 world champions. They didn't have a season in 2020 due to COVID. And then that got us introduced into then the PGA Champions Tour. And there's about 7 or 8 players right now on the Champions Tour wearing our shoes, including Bernhard Langer, Fred Funk, Ken Duke, Sandy Lyle, and then a few others that we're still chatting with, but they're wearing them in competition. They're just not under contract. So we've really kind of seen a growth in
because it's so cool because it's like you caught the eye of the long ball world, right? And now it's a must because it's like, if everyone else is using it and you're not using it, then you might not hit as long as they do, right? It's like an extra advantage, right? Or disadvantage you would have. But then it's like the Champions Tour, those guys still want to hit like they did 20 years ago or 10 years ago, right? Yeah. And they're still very competitive and they still want to play. And because they're older, they're just not able to hit it as far, right? That's what it is. And now, I can see this blowing up on the Champions Tour for sure, right? Well, the Champions Tour this past weekend was just in Tucson, Arizona. So we're, first week of March right now. And, we had some folks down there and, we had dozens of players coming up and asking questions and then Bernhard Langer's, Sandy Lyle, Fred Funk, Ken Duke, they've all been a great advocate for the shoes. Like, you got to try these because they really, really do help. So, we'll get into why, but it's so that's been great, and for Bernhard, he's 63, was 62 last year, and he had one of his best seasons ever last year, and he said he felt more stable and was hitting the ball better consistently because of the shoes. That's insane. It's just cool to hear that because everyone needs that special thing to help them get back to where they were, right? Especially those guys because they're not used to not being on top. Right?
Yeah.
So you went from what the baseball shoe, like how are they using it? Were players using it during games or for like just getting like, what was the story with that?
Yeah, no. So you can use it during in game. So let me go back on how we developed this technology. So to mimic that rosin bag, you want to kind of tilt your feet inward a little bit, but you don't want it tilted in all the way from heel to toe because now you're causing pronation, and then that shifts everything up. So what we did, as we were designing this, we worked with an orthopedic surgeon, Preston Wolin, out of Chicago, because I didn't want to make a product that, while it might help athletic performance, would cause, lead to potential injury. Near term or long term. And then we worked with a sports scientist. His name is Gary McCoy. He's one of the more prominent sports scientists in the country, if not the world. And he had a lot of time with Major League Baseball. And then, working with the major league coaches, Rick Adair, Ty Van Berkeley, the hitting coach for the Indians. So we had, me bringing the engineering to the table. We had the orthopedic surgeon bringing his viewpoints, the sports scientist bringing his viewpoints, and then the major league coaches bringing their viewpoints that went into designing this shoe. And so what we ended up doing is that the heel is just like any other heel in a shoe. It's if you go from the lateral side to the medial side, so outside to inside, it's like any other shoe. It's flat, so there's no pitch one way or another. And then all athletic shoes have a little bit of slope from the heel towards the toe. So we have that in our shoe. But as you get into the forefoot, now you get this gradient slope, so that the ball of your foot and big toe are the lowest point in the shoe. And so that helps mimic then the rosin bag positioning. But why, so once we started looking at that, I wanted to understand, why does that matter? And coming from an engineering standpoint, I started looking at the physics of it. And for all athletic movement, for any movement for that matter, it's a matter of, our body pushes on the ground and the ground pushes back. The ground pushing back is ground reaction force. And for most golfers, they've at least heard of ground reaction force. But it's that ground reaction force from the ground that allows us to move. And what we've done within the shoe is, instead of the ground reaction force being perpendicular, we've kind of shifted it a little bit more towards the body. So now you've got more force going towards the body. So less leakage going this way, more force into the body creates a more stable base and more power. And then by shifting that angle, for somebody my size who's 6 foot, it's easy to calculate, how much more force is going into the body. And that's where we come up with that 9% figure. So if you look at our website, we talk about 9% more power. That's where that comes from, by shifting ground reaction force from here to here, and it goes more into the body.
So really what happened was it sounds like it's like you saw the idea unfolding in front of you, right? When you're at the baseball camp, and you're like, "Oh, this is cool." Yeah. And then it's like, as time progressed, like you were able to develop fundamentally a shoe that helps you hit the ball farther, either as a baseball player or as a golfer, right? Yeah. Because is that because like with regular cleats or regular shoes, like you don't have the same effect? Is that why?
Yeah. So it's not only further, but it's also with more consistency, because your body is more stable. So your golf swing can be more consistent and there's less wasted energy. When we started studying, so we just assumed that, most golf shoes were flat in the forefoot.
Yeah.
So we would have a perpendicular ground reaction force. So we shifted it more in. So that in and of itself would give you more ground reaction force. But when we were analyzing golf shoes, we would cut the toe off and look at the forefoot of the shoe, and they're all kind of U-shaped like this. So what that does is, when you're trying to stay on the inside of your leg on your drive leg, the shoe is actually pushing ground reaction force a little bit away from you. So that's where the sway starts to come in. So when you kind of loading on your backside for your golf swing, and you heard the term sway, it's because the shoe is pushing your energy away from the body. So your body is compensating for that to keep balance. And it's pushing away.
Oh, I see. So like instinctually, our body's like, nope, I'm trying to keep us balanced.
Yeah. So now your foot is starting to move in that shoe. And foot movement I mean, the pro athletes do this really well. They compensate for that in their swing. The less elite of a golfer, the more that impacts the swing. So the more we can keep that back foot steady during the load, backswing, and all the way through the point of contact, the more efficient our golf swing is going to be. Not only from less wasted energy, but more energy into the swing. And what we also found, and to be honest, we haven't studied every golf shoe out there, but we look at the leading brands. And the big push now is comfort, which makes a lot of sense because you're going to walk 18 holes. You want your feet
lighter and more comfortable is like the big thing.
Well, what happens when they go with lighter, softer materials is you compromise athletic performance. So the softer materials compress more, which absorb energy. And then, they talk about bounce back, but there's nothing that compresses and bounces back and gives you 100%. So if it takes, 5 pounds of force to compress it, you may get 2 pounds back. So there's, just from physics, that's the spring coefficient. So nothing is going to compress and give you 100% back. And there's certainly nothing that's going to compress and give you more than 100% back. So you hear about bounce back technology. All they're saying is, well, instead of it being only getting 40% back of the energy, you might get 45 or 50. That's bounce back technology. You're still very inefficient with the compression in return, but it's better than other stuff. So that's the bounce back technology, what they're talking about. But you still have all that wasted energy. So it's a balance in the shoe of how hard you make the midsole to keep comfort, but also to maintain athletic performance. And on that point, what was happening with Bernhard before switching to our shoes is he would go through 3 or 4 pairs of shoes in a match because they were very soft materials. So as he was hitting, the outside of the shoe would start to compress more. So now his feet are actually pointing away from his body. So as the shoes were wearing out, he was getting more and more of his energy going away from his body. So he's having to do more and more compensation with his feet in the shoes. And with our shoe, that it eliminates that. It gives him something to work against. So a great analogy that we use a bit is like, sprinter blocks. So you've got those blocks that sprinters push off against. You can still sprint without them, but you get a better push off if you've got the sprinter blocks. So in a way, that's kind of what we put into the forefoot of our shoes. It gives you something to push against.
So pretty much all the long ball hitters using the shoe right now? I would assume so, right?
Yeah. Again, there's not really a tour in 2020, but most of the players are still using our shoes where they're competing in little independent leagues. And where we're going now, like I said, is more on the Champions Tour player, on the Champions Tour circuit. We also now have a few players on the Korn Ferry Tour using our shoes. And we have one lady right now on the Symetra Tour wearing our shoes. So
Who's that?
I'm sorry?
Who's that?
Summer Rochelle.
Cool.
She's out of Arkansas. So she's on the Symetra Tour working towards getting on the LPGA. But
I just think it's cool. I think that I like long ball, honestly. It's a whole other art form. It's like, and you see how far those balls can hit. You're like, holy crap.
It is amazing. And, I'm 6 foot, 200 pounds. And when I go to the events with long drivers, I look tiny. These guys are big, massive players, and which just makes sense because, part of hitting a golf ball is the mass behind the swing. So there's a reason why, long drivers are big, strong men and home run hitters in baseball are big, strong guys because it's the mass of the body in combination with the club that allows the ball to go further.
Yeah, I can never hit the ball that far. If I hit the ball that far, it's going to be slicing right at the trees.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a lot of respect for them because they really are athletes. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, I'm a badass. Look at me. I'm going to hit the ball really far. It's like, no, they're an athlete training to hit the ball really far. Right.
Yeah. So to that point, Justin James, former number 1, he was a minor league baseball pitcher before getting hurt and then transitioning into long drive. His dad, Jerry, was a competitive long drive player as well. Ryan Steenberg, who I mentioned, he was starting quarterback in college and got into that. Kyle Berkshire played baseball and golf in high school. So you're right. I mean, these guys are good athletes that are just incredibly strong and have amazing ability to transfer the power from the ground through their body to the golf club.
That's crazy. Like for reals. I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
I'm too old for that.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about this, and I've talked about this, but if everybody could hit a ball 400 yards, it wouldn't be special. There's a reason why watching people walk is not a spectator sport, because everybody can walk. What makes professional athletics fun to watch is there's so few people that can do it.
Yeah, it's the pinnacle of whatever that thing is.
Yeah. It's like, boy, it's so cool to see somebody play it that well and that consistently. And,
like I was watching the Tiger Woods documentary, and they're like showing all these great shots he had and all the pressure. And I was like golfing on Sunday, and I was like literally thinking about it. Like, oh, if Tiger Woods, I remember chipping, and I was thinking, about like Tiger Woods making these crazy putts and crazy things, and I still missed my shot. It's just like, and like he makes it from like 70 feet away, and I'm like, I can't even make it from 3.
Yeah.
So,
and millions of eyeballs via TV, and tens of thousands of people right there watching you, and I'm the same way. I'm playing with some friends, and it's like, oh my, you get kind of nervous.
You're on the first tee box, and everyone's like staring at you, and the shotgun guy is right there, and you're like, don't slice. And then you hit it, and you top it, and you're like, oh yeah, that's me.
Mulligan time.
Yeah, seriously, like I can't even play in front of like my foursome. I'm like already embarrassed.
Don't watch. And I hate being at the number 1 tee box when there's groups around.
Oh, I hate that so much.
Yeah, don't watch.
Or especially, or even when there's not, and you're with like another twosome, right? And you're like, you do the cordial hellos, and then they have nice stuff, and they have like they each hit a really nice drive, and then you hit, it's like complete crap. And they're like, oh yeah, it was me. That's right. You got 18 holes of that.
Yeah. And then they're like, oh God, this is going to take.
Yeah, seriously. Then they get back in their cart and they're like, oh shit.
and then it just gets worse as the holes cross, because you're like,
well, then they start to get to know you, and they kind of accept you like you're the dumb kid. Like, oh, okay, that guy sucks. He's funny, so it's all right. Yeah. But you guys are growing fast though. So when did the golf shoe really like start taking off then? Like what year was that?
We introduced it. So we had production being made in the fall of 2018. We applied for USGA approval in the fall of 2018. We first got rejected, and then we had to go.
Patent?
No, from the USGA. They said,
from the USGA. Of course, everybody gets rejected the first time, right? Yeah. Like that's just their.
Yeah. So it was an interesting process, and for me, that's where having
30 years of experience helps.
Yeah, practicing law and technology and that stuff.
Explaining stuff, and
so it took about 6 weeks, but we got approval.
That's fast.
We got about approval from the USGA. So the day before Thanksgiving of 2018. So we really did a formal launch of January of 2019 with the shoe.
Now, for marketing, it kind of just marketed itself, right? It wasn't like you guys were, saying, hey, like people were using it and they're like, holy, what are you using? Oh, that's what this is. Oh, cool.
Yeah. So a lot of our marketing efforts has been the word of mouth. I should say that our most successful marketing effort. We were a sponsor of the 2019 Long Drive with Golf Channel.
Oh, that's cool.
Commercials on Golf Channel. And what I learned from that is, quite honestly, if you don't have tens of millions in your marketing budget to spend on TV commercials, don't do it, because you can't get enough saturation of the TV audience with a handful of commercials to have it pay off. And they're expensive to do. I mean, it's like, $1,000 for a 30-second spot on non-prime time stuff.
Yeah, like at 2:00 in the morning, right? When like nobody's awake.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't quite that bad. It was like the morning drive kind of thing was, 1,000 to 1,500 for 30 seconds. But like when they were doing a golf event, it could be $5 to $10,000 for a 30-second spot. That's brutal for a small company.
Startup, nobody has that.
Yeah.
I mean,
so so some of the things we learned the hard way.
Did you go to the golf PGA show?
Yeah. So we were there in 2019 and 2020.
Did you get a booth?
Yeah, we did. So
Cha-ching.
Yeah, that was not cheap either.
Did you have a big booth or a little booth? Because I know what it costs for a little booth. I mean, I didn't buy it, but I know people told me.
We had a 10 by 10 booth both years.
Yeah.
And, we didn't come close to having a positive ROI on that. It was
did you sell 100 pair of shoes?
not even.
I mean, come on. Like this is what I think. Okay, nothing against PGA show, but like especially with this virtual one they had to do this year, I think that's really going to hurt them because I think brands had to figure out another way of marketing, right? Yeah. And like, I don't know. I just think it's a whole different landscape, right?
Yeah. We did the virtual booth this year, and
oh gosh, I think you're the first person to tell me this. How did that turn out? I want to know. Like, was it like? Because when I read that, I was like, oh, it's a money grab. Right
we had zero response from that.
Shocker.
Yeah, I know. And the only reason we did it is because it was the minimum was like $1,500.
Yeah, it was cheap. Like, but I mean,
for that kind of money,
it's a gamble, right? If it's like, well, whatever.
Yeah, it was worth the risk, but it was we got nothing from it. And and you brought up a good point. How is this going to change the PGA show going forward? Because it really is a carryover from 20, 30 years ago
or more. Yeah,
you did that face-to-face networking,
and the buyers go in front of you, and like this whole like that's when one time a year they see you, or they get a catalog or they call you. Like that was back in the day, right?
But social media, the internet, all that's changed so much in the last 20 years that. There's still value in face-to-face get-togethers, but for those types of trade shows, it was more out of habit than true business value. Because while some orders got written, most of the orders were either taken care of before or after.
It was more about like networking. I mean, I've only gone to one PGA show. I went last year. I obviously didn't have a booth or anything like that. And to me, it was just fun because I just saw my friends. That's what it was. I just saw people that I talked to and met throughout the last couple of years. And I was seriously excited to see these people because I literally become friends with them, So it was like, but other than that, I'm like, how do you get any value out of this? Like, I mean, I know there probably was a value, but at some point in time, the unfortunate thing is I feel like people go to it and they think that once they go to it, they're going to be a real company. Right? They're going to have orders. It's like they're so excited, right? To like launch this product at a show. And then it doesn't do anything because that's how it works. And they don't know that until they spend 10 or 15 grand. And they're like, well, shit, now what?
Yeah. Well, in the rumor in the golf industry is, you got to go to the PGA show. So, you do. I feel it's like a rite of passage, right? It really is. So, but as far as it being a good business investment, at least it hasn't been for us.
I think it's cool because like you and I are outsiders, right? Like this is not our world at all. Like we've kind of come into it, but it's not like what we've been in and trained in, and and so I don't know. Things are just.
It's a cool experience.
Oh hell yeah! It was fun as hell. Like I mean, literally, it's like the funnest thing. It's like a male version of Disneyland.
Yeah.
Like literally. And
it's massive.
It's all dudes. So like you're not have to like go ride on rides you don't want to, you know?
But it also for a small company, it's extremely daunting because you've got literally about a mile.
That's what it is.
Long and about a quarter mile wide of booths.
Pure booths. Like
how the hell am I going to get recognized in this sea of businesses? I mean, that's a huge, huge challenge for all startups, not just in golf, but across all businesses. How do you get recognized? And, the only thing that we've seen that's worked is, like you mentioned, the word of mouth, getting some of the champion tour players wearing it. And then it's just perseverance and just keep
Yeah,
running.
it's like what you were talking about earlier. This whole thing's a marathon. It is.
Yeah.
Like you can't lose the excitement for what you're doing because something's not working.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's the best way I could say it.
Yeah. For us, we have 13 patents issued on our shoe. Utility shoe. So, coming from patent law, I've seen a lot of innovations. So I've got a pretty good feel for, what's unique and what has some market value. So I can see that in what we're doing. We do have that value, but again, getting people to invest in that and buy the shoe, it's been a real challenge. And I've really changed my philosophy about this. I always had this vision that, boy, we just need that spark to ignite everything. And I keep waiting for, is this the spark? When we signed Bernard, hey, here's the spark. And recently I've come to realize, a spark may happen, but I think that's so rare that companies just get that one spark and they take off. It's more about, I get this little piece, and they collectively start building and building and building to the point where now you start to get some momentum and recognition, and then that continues to grow from there.
I think that's true for a lot of things. I think even with what I'd done with my website and stuff like that, it's like one brick at a time. It really is. And, people after a couple of years are like, oh, how did you do it? And I'm like, I just tried everything, and I tried, and I did the best I could at everything I did. Right. And that's really what it was. And I just didn't give up. A lot of people just give up when they don't get the results they want right away. I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. Who was that? It's a pretty big brand. And they were saying that what they learned from it was, a lot of people will start brands and they'll do their first drop of the product, whatever that might be. And it doesn't really pan out, right, as they thought it would. And then they just disappear. And it's not because that product was a bad product. It's more because they've lost the ambition behind it because they didn't get the result they wanted. Right. And so you have to kind of treat it like a marathon. And like you said, right, you started in baseball. You thought maybe it would go to golf, but that wasn't your initial intention. Like, hey, I'm making a golf shoe for a long ball hitter. That would be the last thought in your mind, right? Like when you did V1 in your head at a baseball camp, right? So, but if you were just like, oh, nobody likes my shoe, or not many people are using it because they don't understand the fundamentals behind it, and you just stopped it. It's not like, you have a full-time job, right? Like you're busy, you enjoy it. This is just the part of your brain that enjoys creating something, right?
Yeah.
I know. I think it's cool. That's why I love talking to small, mid-sized brands, because there's very few large brands, and the large brands that are out there, I feel like are dinosaurs, right? They take so much inertia to actually make a move in a direction, right?
Yeah.
And with guys like yourself, you're able to make decisions on the fly, right? And go in a different direction if something's not working and develop it.
That's a really interesting thing. I'm sure in your law practice you've experienced this as well. But the large companies have such momentum and such control over the industries, and they do a good job of squashing the little guy when the little guy starts to take some market share, or they just acquire him.
It's one of the two. I've heard that so many times, especially with who told me this the other day? It was almost, I think it was a Titleist. They're like, as soon as you start making golf balls and you get on Titleist's radar, they come after you, right? Saying, oh, you're patent infringement. It's like, my ball is a single core ball, it's almost like they buy up these patents, or they create these patents to use them to shut down their competitors before they even have a chance, because these competitors don't have the money to fight them, right? And they're like, oh, forget it.
Yeah. And that's just part of business, and part of the technology and innovation is, that's the beauty of the patent system, because it allows you to invest money to develop the technology and protect it and restrict others from using it. But it's kind of a double-edged sword, because once you get to be so large that you've got the financial resources to have a 6-year
to enforce it.
Patent litigation where small companies just don't have that. I was talking to somebody yesterday who had a product and they were starting to do well, and then they get sued by a patent infringement by a big company. And patent infringement lawsuit, if you take it all the way to trial, you're looking at minimum $1.5 million in legal services.
Oh my God.
If not 3 or 4 million. Now, like, when big company is going after big company for patent litigation, they're spending $1 million, $1.5 million
Oh yeah.
on legal fees.
To them, it's nothing. That's they make that in a day, right? They don't care.
Yeah, it's part of the business strategy.
I had a client once. Well, not a client. It was a friend of mine's client, but like he got sued by Exxon, which is hilarious, right? Like because what they were suing about was like it was just because of something silly, right? And he's like, and this guy's like, kiss my ass, and he actually fought him because he had money too. And then they like negotiated, they settled out, but it was kind of cool to see the guy tell him to kiss his ass. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't gonna like, I don't know. It's funny because I don't know. I've seen this too lately where people will come after somebody like a brand and say, oh, you're infringing on my patent or my whatever. And then they push back because they don't realize that the person they're going after has the knowledge or has the money to be like, whatever, this is my side gig, man. I mean, like, not even a side gig. This is one of my side companies of 5 companies that I own. Like, I don't care. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Like you're doing me a favor. If I'm on your radar, that's great because that means I'm actually doing something right.
Yeah.
But it's also scary as shit.
Yeah. You want to be on the radar, but more on the tangential fringe of the radar.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to be any. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And fortunately for Athalonz, there's not a lot of patents on shoes to begin with. A good percentage of patents on shoes are design patents, which are just the ornamental appearance. And then most of the utility patents are really geared towards materials, trying to make lighter weight stuff or different traction patterns. So what we've done within the midsole of shifting a ground reaction force, that was kind of green grass territory in innovation in the shoes. So, and we don't have.
So, I mean, what's kind of cool is like, you're a smart man, right? Really, because, and by you being a patent attorney, you looked at this as a long-term move, right? Like you were like, I'm going to design this shoe and then I'm going to figure it out after the fact. Like you started in the right place and you worked forward, right? And so because of that, you have this technology that somebody can license from you. Go to Nike can be like, oh, I want to do that for a new shoe. You'd be like, all day long, go right ahead.
Yeah.
Like, am I right or am I wrong? I know I see your like,
yeah, absolutely.
That's the. So let me answer this question for you because I'm already going to ask it. What is your long-term play? My long-term play is I'm going to license my technology, right? I mean, because once it gets in the eyes of like when the big boys, see it and they want it, then if they even come close to what your patent is, you're going to take them out, or or you can license it from you or whatever it might be.
Yeah. So I think we're well positioned that way. Yeah. And that's where, being a patent lawyer for 30 years really comes into play because I've worked with a lot of clients, especially. Yeah.
You've been through it with them, right? Like
most small companies don't patent their technology well. It's kind of an afterthought. And I can't tell you how many small clients or small companies I've talked to over the years where they just waited too long to protect their core innovations. And you're anytime you go public with your idea, it starts the clock for when you have to patent. And the United States gives you a 1-year window from when you go public. Most foreign countries, you go public and you're barred from filing a patent. So many of these small companies, they start talking to VCs down the road and you got patents like, oh, we need patents. But it's like 3 or 4 years after they develop the technology, it's too late to file. So all the really good stuff they missed out on because they waited too long. And for the most part, they just didn't know the patent process, So for me, when we started Athalonz, the first thing we did was how do we make this? And then we patented it before we even started to make a prototype and making shoes.
Yeah, it was a long-term play.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I don't know. I think you're the first person I've talked to that did that, honestly.
Yeah.
Most people just want to bring it to market. Like I want to make a widget and I want to bring it to market.
Yeah.
Do that. And then it's like, well, then they can't get pissed off later on when someone steals their widget. It's like, dude.
And to other companies, the best thing for them you can do is create a new market and don't protect the technology that forged that new market, because now they can just take that technology, implement it, probably for a fraction of the cost it took you to develop it, and you have no legal repercussion. So we're working on this term within the law firm called sustained success. It's one thing for a company to build their business and get up to here, and then a lot of them do this. So how do you build a business and then have sustained success? And if your market differentiator is your technology, how you have sustained success is you patent protected that technology very well. And what most entities don't realize is it's not one patent, it's not a couple, it's a whole portfolio, which could be tens of patents to hundreds to thousands of patents. IBM issues almost 10,000 patents a year.
Whoa.
Now, sorry, I'm getting all nerdy with patent stuff here on you, but the cell phone, so 4G cell phone had over 20,000 essential patents for 4G. There's going to be over 26,000 essential patents in 5G. And 4 times that were submitted to be considered essential. So you're looking at over 200,000 patents that go into making a cell phone. And that's just since 4G and 5G. So for companies to think, hey, I'm going to get into this high-tech space and have 1 or 2 patents, it's just
the value is in the patent.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's in the portfolio.
The portfolio of patents, not just the one. Right? Everything you make essentially should have a patent on it if you want to cover your ass. If not, don't get mad when somebody steals it and says, oh, I made the same thing. It's like, well, is it patented? No. But I have a trademark. Different world, doesn't count.
Yeah.
Only counts with the name. Sorry.
Or I'll keep it a trade secret, and that doesn't work either if it's something in a product that you're offering for sale. So there's so many.
Really? See, you're my new patent attorney. Just letting you know.
Yeah. All right.
My ideas. I'm gonna come out with the Athalonz, and it's gonna be the shoe. But I'm just kidding.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll be meeting. No.
No, thank you. I submit. Well, it's awesome. I mean, I've been following you guys from afar. I know we're just starting to work together, but it's really cool especially because you're local, right? Like you're close to where I live. But when I talked to Jeremiah on your team, you're like, oh yeah, he's an attorney. He's an IP attorney or a patent attorney. I was like, oh, I got to talk to this guy. This guy's gonna be fun. So I really appreciate you coming on the show. I look forward to doing more stuff with you guys in the future. But you guys need to check out Athalonz. What's your website again?
It's Athalonz, ATHALONZ.com.
And it will help you hit the ball farther, like for reals. And we're not just saying that because this is some kind of ploy. Like if long ball hitters are using it, there's a reason, right? So if you're looking to get more distance on your shots, then you need to check out these shoes because it can help you. What's the price point on it? Isn't it like around the same price?
It's
normal shoes?
70, so it's
like a normal pair of golf shoes.
Comparable to what other golf shoes are.
Yeah, it's like $400 or something crazy. It's like comparable to like a FootJoy or something that's out there already, right? Or anybody really in that market. So, well, awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Great. Likewise.
Right.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Behind the Golf Brand Podcast.
You're going to beat me at golf?
Stay connected on and off the show by visiting golfersauthority.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment.
Golf is always more fun when you win.
Stay out of the beach and see you on the green.